So, welcome to episode 12 of the Breaking Bio podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Hamlin from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. And today is Friday, November 30th. And we're off to a roaring start. But since you have no idea who I'm talking to, let's introduce everyone today. And we'll start with Bug.
Hi, I'm Bug Girl. I'm speaking to you from my secret lair in Connecticut.
The Soviet-era lair.
Yes.
I'm Crystal Ernst. I'm a PhD candidate at McGill University in Quebec, Canada.
I'm Morgan Jackson. I'm entomology PhD student at the University of Guelph in Canada as well.
Hi, I'm Tom Housley. I'm a PhD student at the University of Stirling in Scotland, and I've been drinking beer.
What did you just about say? Like, did you just about claim to be from St. Andrews or something?
It was just sounds. It's fine.
That's right. Keep drinking beer. That's going to make everything better.
Well, I'm misappropriating work Wi-Fi, so...
Yeah, it does actually look like you work in a Soviet prison, so...
It feels like it, too, a lot of the time, yes. That's why I'm leaving, actually. So I only have one more month here.
Not so good.
Are you trying to say that the life of an administrator isn't all joys and giggles and unicorns?
Yes.
All right, special field report from Bug over.
Yeah.
So we're gathered here today in the first instance.
It sounded like a funeral starting. I'm sorry.
I know.
Yeah.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right?
Well, it is actually a funeral because there has been a death in the family, i.e., stabby cock daggers.
It's just
people are going to wonder where Raphael went.
He finally screwed up saying his name one too many times. I had to kill him. It was tragic. So Tom, why don't you fill in everyone as to what happened so we can all express our rage appropriately?
I don't think it's something to particularly rage about, possibly. But, so a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a post on my blog that was about a particular species in an insect order called the Strepsiptera, and these are a weird little insect where their name is, I think it means twisted wing, and the males have wings which are twisted, which is where they get their names. But they have this strange sort of life history where the females actually they don't have wings, they don't have mouths, they just live inside other insects as a kind of parasite. And so I wrote a typically ridiculous and hyperbolic post about how these weird little insects live, and the males in a particular species within this order perform traumatic insemination. So as we've gone over in the last couple of episodes, that's where the male has a kind of penis that is sharp and pointy, and he injects it into the female just anywhere he sees fit. And so this is where the term stabby cock dagger came from. So after a few weeks of this being up, I had a comment posted from someone who told me that they worked on them and that my post itself wasn't actually entirely accurate, and there are some more studies that were more interesting. So I got in touch with this researcher and asked about these other studies and tried to figure out what was going on, and they got back to me with a load, basically just a huge raft of corrections that should be made and 15 papers that I should cite and the phylogeny and stuff. And I was just I was reading this thing and going, this is a fucking blog post about stabby cock daggers. So after a few emails, I just went, I'm just going to delete it because this is fucking ridiculous.
The whole post?
Yeah, I just deleted the whole post because there were so many things with which they took issue that I just thought...
No, leave it up.
Don't give in to the trolls.
As one person.
Yeah. So...
Yes. But, I mean, ultimately, it sounds like what you've run into is one of those people that does not understand what a blog post is. And I get this all the time. Whenever I post about something, it'll be like, yes, but you left out this one really incredibly important detail. And it's like, yeah, because it's 800 words, dude. The point is not to write a paper. It is a short, little, humorous essay. And if I include 59 footnotes, it stops being short or humorous or an essay.
Probably explains why nobody ever read any of my blog posts.
Well, one of the papers that was sent was the phylogeny of the Strepsiptera, and I was just like, I'm not putting a phylogeny in this. Nobody is going to read it.
It's not relevant.
So is this guy actually claiming like huge factual errors, or just he's being pedantic and wants you to write a book on it?
They were being pretty pedantic, and there were a few little things where it felt like they were being very dismissive of blogs and just kind of saying, oh, this is why I don't like blogs. It's a very biased view, and I think it kind of almost felt like they didn't like that paper, and they preferred, some of their own, and quite a few of the ones that were sent were from this person, which I guess is not that surprising in that they actually work on this relatively unknown order, but. Yeah.
So they wanted you to cite their paper, so they were just pulling academic bag on you.
Pretty much, and I think they said to me that they were writing.
Is what you did.
Yeah, they said to me that they were writing a review article on the Strepsiptera, on like sexual selection in Strepsiptera, and also a book on Strepsiptera, and I was like, well. It made me laugh a little bit because I've had so many hits on that post, and if they'd been a little bit less brusque and dismissive, then my first instinct was to clarify a few things and then be like, this person is doing cool stuff, go and look at it. But no, I'm just like, I deleted it. Fuck the Strepsiptera, they're rubbish.
So now the official position of the podcast is we're anti-Strepsiptera?
Oh yeah, big time.
They're second-rate beetles anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Ooh.
Entomological smack talk. Nice. You just don't get enough of that. But, I had a conversation with someone the other day. It was another postdoc here at UNSW, and we were talking about the use of social media in publishing because we'd gotten into this kerfuffle when I said I was going to try blogging some of my science. Not really a fight. We were just having a conversation, but she was going on about how she doesn't like blog posts and social media on science, and she doesn't like the PLOS model where you can comment on a paper because she thinks that it just leads to people saying nonsense, and most people don't understand science well enough to talk about it. And it was a very, I'm making her sound bad, but she just had this kind of elitist view of it, right?
Yeah.
Where science is for scientists, and nobody else will really get it, so they shouldn't be in the conversation.
Was it really an exclusivity thing, or was she actually worried about getting scooped or having somebody say something negative about her work that she may not want to have to deal with?
She, in part, there was actually a grain of usefulness to it because she was talking about the fact that, commenting on science online and such creates a flood of information where, the conversation can get out of hand and you can lose track of some of the stuff that's happened. So if you want to, if you're responding to a paper and somebody, gets into a big thread somewhere else on the internet you don't see, you might miss something, that should maybe go into a published paper that you can respond to.
But
I don't buy it, but
we're all having conversations in our different localities with our colleagues that are never published and never accessible to those of you that are in, some other continent, like Australia, for example.
Yeah.
Part of it is I don't understand why people can't just say, okay, there's this world out there and I don't get it, but that's okay. It's like, no, everybody has to do things my way. And my way is the only one true way. And it's like, no, there's a diversity of ways that you can communicate things. And why is that hard to get? I don't.
Well, her focus was very much on the academic paper as the publishable unit, right? as the unit of science.
As the status quo.
Well,
Since the 60s. It's not even... I mean, the whole peer review process is a relatively new phenomenon. And yes, it's Chris.
Special guest.
Yeah,
It's okay. He's cool with this. It's good.
get him a headset.
For everybody listening at home, Crystal's advisor, Chris Buttle, just walked into the room and waved to everyone. So,
Yeah. But it's okay because he's cool.
Yeah. It's all good. But, anyways, what were we talking about? Peer review again? I don't even
Peer review is
60s long.
that it's a
Well, yeah, it's a relatively new concept. I mean, not
so
new
if
concept,
60s
but
is
right.
new, that means I'm new too, right? Yeah. Sorry, got my own self-interest tangled up there. Keep going.
Well, the
Yeah.
interesting part of that is that she's my age, like she's, a postdoc just like me. She's of my generation, right? And,
I think
easy
that
there,
there's.
But like I'm saying that she's a new scientist and she's still embedded in that old way of thinking about how we do science, right?
I think there's a misconception that the younger crowd is really tapped into social media. I can say in this last term we played around with. Well, I shouldn't use that's a bad choice of words. We had our students in one of our classes using social media in various ways in the classroom. This was sort of an experimental thing. And my expectation was, you're going to give them some tools and you're going to say, use your Twitter account. Most of them didn't have a Twitter account.
Right.
Most of them didn't read blogs or really had no idea how this stuff worked at all. Maybe half of them had Facebook accounts. Like they're not using this stuff as much as we think they are. I was really surprised. My preconceived notion was that everybody of this generation would be, and especially those, my students are 10 years younger than me for the most part. And no, they're not.
That actually, it is interesting because when they talk about using social media in science, they always make huge noises about, there's 500 million Facebook users and there's 140 million Twitter users. But there's, 6-7 billion people on the planet, and so that means not everybody has a Twitter account. Like, the actual numbers are pretty low still, comparatively. You shouldn't expect everyone on the street to have one.
Well, for Twitter, there are distinct populations in terms of communities. So there's a really lively Twitter science community, and that I think there's a disproportionate number of scientists on Twitter, and I think when you look at the Pew Internet Studies, which are sort of the gold standard, they have been gathering data on the internet for almost 15 years now, and they basically find that it seems like it's pretty steady across age ranges in terms of what social platform different people are using. So I think it's kind of not. At this point, you're about as likely to find your grandmother on Facebook as you are one of your students.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, I know, like, even thinking of the people in my school here, I can only think of a couple people. Like, it may be disproportionate in terms of the number of scientists on Twitter, but I can still only think of a couple people around here who actually have a Twitter account. So that's still a fairly low percentage, even though it's higher among scientists.
Yes, I agree.
Did somebody turn off the lights there, or what? Like,
the sun is going down, and
That's not a metaphor.
and now the moon will rise. No,
if this turns into a Twilight movie, I am leaving.
But also we have. Basically, I've been sitting here and not moving, and so if I wave my arms a whole bunch, the lights will probably come back on, which is one of the more entertaining things, especially when you're in a meeting. And I've been in some really high-level meetings with, vice provosts and provosts, and we're in the middle of the meeting, the lights go off, and so everybody starts flapping their arms around in their seats. It's really awesome.
A little chicken dance break in the middle of the meeting. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's one of the more. That is one of the good things about being an administrator here. Is occasionally you get to see people wave their arms and flap around like a fish. It's awesome. Well, not like a fish, but like a fish would if it had arms. Which it will.
And was in the
someday.
dark.
And was in the dark. Yeah. Yeah. See, it's getting close to 5 o'clock, and this is the kind of slap happy I get.
Okay, so I need some advice.
So moving right along.
Well, I was just thinking, we were just talking about this lab mate of yours, or that was not interested in posting research stuff on social media, and I have found myself at a blogging crossroads. So I've been doing some research. Imagine that, okay? And I keep saying, okay, guys, I'm going to post stuff about my research, and I've got a paper in press that I could probably talk about. I've got another project on the go that's like halfway done, and I'm finding some cool stuff, and I've chatted very like at a high level about it. But I had every intention of blogging as I was going, but I'm finding myself at the point now going, maybe I should just wait until the paper comes out and then write about it.
Actually, I came across this that's what started this conversation with the postdoc, right? Because I was in a group, we were in a workshop, and I raised the idea that I was going to blog a project, a research project, as I was doing it. And so this very thing came up, and a bunch of PhD students and this postdoc went, no, you can't.
We've lost Bug.
Waving like...
Hey, there we go.
There's the waving, hooray!
There's our fish. All right.
Fish girl.
But that very issue came up, and the PhD students and the postdoc all reacted badly and said, no, you can't do that. Like, for the journals are never going to take that. They're never going to let you publish your science. And I said, well, for one, I know this has already happened. Like, Rosie Redfield did it,
Yeah.
And
in
so
science.
in science. Now, she may have been a special case, right? But so I went on Twitter. I went on Twitter that night and asked around, and I got a whole bunch of replies to this, including some journal editors, some people involved in publishing, and the response was about 80-20, right?
In what way?
Yeah, in favor of posting your research as you do it, that this wasn't going to harm your chances of publication, or that it shouldn't. Some people seem to be more optimistic than informed, but but like Eric Svensson replied, and he's an editor on several journals, right? And he said, no, that wouldn't stop us from publishing your work. I don't know whether Nature is gonna have a problem with it, because they like to embargo stuff, but
embargo's different though. I mean, that's once it's accepted, you can't talk about it anywhere else until it comes out. That's not the same as, this information that was previously talked about, and now it's maybe cutting it off. But how many Nature papers people talked about before submitting it to Nature? Like graduate students doing research talks along the way at conferences.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Like, what's the difference between giving a conference talk, which I've done on all of these things, and putting it online for a different audience to see? I've never really understood. I'm not sure why I'm feeling hesitant about it all of a sudden. I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Actually, I got a reply. I got a reply from Andrew King on that, actually, who said that you may not be able to talk about your stuff at a conference if you're publishing in Science.
Yeah, I remember seeing that tweet. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the full details of that. I don't know if it means that you can't talk about it before you submit. Or like if they'll reject it because of that, I don't know. But
my guess is it's the embargo thing again. Coming back to get out of here, cat. Coming back to the whole Rosie Redfield thing. She broke her own embargo by talking at Evolution and forced their hand, and they actually published her article. I think it was a couple days early because she was actually giving one of the keynotes at the Evolution meeting this summer. I don't know. I'm of the mind that I don't see why somebody's talked about it, why you can't publish it again or permanently record it in the scientific literature or whatever. Just because somebody knows about it before it came out in the journal doesn't make it any less important, in my mind, which is the entire point of publication.
Well, that postdoc that I was talking to, with her focus on the academic paper as a like a quanta of scientific publishing, I still think we can have that, and but blog about our science and talk about our science as we do it, and use the academic paper as like a snapshot, right? Like, we've gotten to this point, because let's face it, an academic paper is a fiction anyways. We write it as though we started out with this great hypothesis, and then we designed this great experiment and did it,
and everything
and
worked.
Here's our results. Yeah. When in,
The first time.
when in reality,
Exactly.
like if you're Tom, all your data dies, and then you start again, and you. But
Or for my
you have
masters, a hurricane comes and all your plots are underwater.
Oh no.
Oh yes, that was bad.
Wow.
But then why can't we use the paper as a snapshot like that and just say this is where the project was when we published it, and you can respond to that. But there's this whole conversation before and after, right?
Well, I mean, again, I'm a little biased because I'm coming from taxonomy, where essentially every taxonomy paper is just a snapshot. It's like, okay, I've done enough, now I cut it off here and I publish this bit, and then you come back and you publish new species, new ideas on the exact same group, a couple years down the road as you get more specimens, data, methods, and stuff like that. And that's all it is in taxonomy, is continually updating your chunk of research as you go through your life.
I don't know. Anybody else got anything to weigh in on the publication thing?
I think it depends on what you're doing, because for most of our research, it's not stealable. I mean, you can't take years and years of taxonomic research and swipe it that easily, or a field trial where you've spent 3 years setting stuff up and collecting data. To be able to take that idea and run with it is really difficult. For some of the molecular stuff, that is something that you can apparently quickly grab and run with, so that if you're not fast enough, then priority of publication does matter. So I think for some of us, it's kind of a moot issue, that the concern about priority, the concern about, do I break an embargo? Do I go ahead and tell people what I'm doing? Most of the time, everybody knows what you're doing because you've been talking about it anyway. So it's not that big a secret.
Well, there are movements afoot to operationalize that too, right? So, like, I know the Open Science Federation is putting together this initiative to allow you to do things like register your hypotheses online. Essentially like claiming priority. And
marking your territory in an academic sense, and
A
hopefully
bit.
with less urine.
I don't know how that's all going to work. And certainly I hope there's no urine involved. But, because there's still open issues. Like, you could just, patent troll and go register a bunch of hypotheses and say, screw it, I'm going to take over the whole field on work you never intend on doing.
Or have any possibility of doing. That's kind of there's a bit of that in taxonomy, at least from what I've seen, is people, staking claim to groups and or hoarding specimens, or not giving out loans because they have intentions of working on this group at some point rather than giving it out. And in some cases it's somewhat valid. I mean, they sometimes spend a lot of time collecting specimens and curating and such, and they do want to get the paper out of their time and effort, but sometimes it's just people being dinks.
I've heard of the not being willing to share specimens quite a bit.
Well, data hoarding can be a bit of an issue generally. I mean, I'm thinking as an ecologist, I was looking around for data sets on, pitfall catches recently from people who've been working in the north, and people are like, no, it's mine. Like, I've had very mixed responses in terms of people being willing to let other people look at their data sets, which I found surprising. So, and then half of those who did let me look at their data sets were fairly insistent that I would give them authorship on anything I wrote, even if they made no other contribution to the paper. So,
that's how we incentivize scientists nowadays, right? Your only way of proving you're productive is the number of papers you're on. What do you do?
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand the mentality. I see science as being more of a collaborative venture, period. And we're only hurting ourselves, I think, by not sharing what we're doing with other people. So I don't get it. But
you naive fool.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gets back to the model that there is one way to do things, and that way is essentially to amass the equivalent of an academic penis. And so the more stuff that you have on your CV and the bigger your CV is, then the bigger your academic dick is.
And the more you can stab people with it.
Yes! Yes. And so the more papers that you have, the more well academically hung you are. And so it's all about size. So if you're competing, right, you're building up your laboratory sexual ornamentation, then no, you're not going to share. Because you have to get that name, and you have to get that paper, and you have to pad that CV.
Last episode we had 10 minutes of shrubbery metaphor euphemisms here. So this time you just went straight for the money shot.
Well, we did start with we started with stabby cock daggers, so academic dick is not a
none
huge
of you
leap.
has ever. I know that some of you have had CV envy. I know it.
I am actually just going to go in and retitle my CV "Academic Dick."
Yes.
Under qualifications.
That I don't know. That could come off wrong. It could sound like you're an academic private investigator.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Go work for
But no, I mean, do you guys not? I am the only one that sees this, that bigger is better in academia. The more.
No, you're right.
It is right. I mean, I would be more arguing for it doesn't matter the size, it's how you use it kind of thing. But just to continue
size.
that little euphemism.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, from that point of view, then
no,
stop there, perhaps.
For academic size, in non-academic circles, that's a whole different conversation.
I think size does matter. This is a strange conversation, but
welcome to the podcast.
But it's
when I'm involved anyway.
It's unfortunate. I think it's an overinflated metric that doesn't necessarily reflect people's true abilities or contributions to science all the time. It's the same way, like I argue, you look at undergrads who are looking for admission into a graduate program, and it's like, well, what's their grades? And it's like, yes, that's a lovely metric that we can look at, but it's really not a very accurate measure of how they're going to behave in the lab, what kind of productivity they're going to have. I just think it's important to look at other things. But that said, I recognize that that's how the game works. So,
but yeah, I mean, I see that. I guess because I'm not faculty anymore, and so I'm in a different evaluation system. When you're outside looking back in, it just seems so blatant that, oh yeah, it's all a big size queen contest, or king, as it may be.
Oh,
yes, well, any other perspective you'd like on academia from my advanced age and position? That sounded bad.
In the context of this podcast, yes. Yes, it did. It's actually not a bad idea, though. So you're one of the higher-ups that we're all trying to impress with our CVs. I'm going back to the old word.
Well, in terms of... yeah, so yeah, man, just whip that sucker out. Lay it on me, man.
Lay it out on the table. I'll just flop it out.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of committees and search committees, it is really clear that there's a reward for having a big CV. And I mean, we were talking, one of the reasons why this is in the forefront of my mind is we were talking today about somebody that had a 57-page CV.
57 pages.
57 pages, and it wasn't double-spaced. Well, and that would be the faffing, I think, that you were alluding to earlier. But the thing was, that candidate got talked about because they had a fucking 57-page CV. And so it draws attention, and it means that you get a disproportionate amount of attention because we're all going, 57 pages? What the hell? And so,
yeah, but good attention or bad attention?
Good, mostly. Because that means that somehow they must have been getting money, and it's all about the money right now. I mean, the other thing that happened yesterday was my university found out they are getting a $15 million cut for the rest of this academic year. So in the next 6 months, we have to cut $15 million of something. And yeah, and so what our president has said is that we are in the process of hiring something like 200 faculty members. And she said that, no, we're not going to change that. What we're going to do is just cut non-academic programs, which are student support services, like me. So, and that's, I mean, and I'm here because that exact same thing happened at another university in another state. So faculty are now the financial engine for universities. And the amount of money that you have is really heavily weighed, and the amount of publications you have is really heavily weighed if you are going for a research position.
So that answers, oh, sorry, go Maureen. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to, I've got kind of an alternative viewpoint. Is our university is undergoing some weird financial reassessment kind of thing right now. Where I can't remember the official name. It's got a lot of P's in it. But it's essentially reanalyzing, you know, where our strengths are as a university, and they're going to reorganize and reshuffle, you know, a lot of the makeup of the university. I think they want to cut $30 million over the next 4 years or something like that.
Wow.
Which essentially means that they're going to try and, from what everybody is assuming, they're going to try and let go 162 faculty. So never mind hiring, they're literally going to, I assume, through retirement packages and such, because tenure and such, try and get rid of 100.
I was going to say, if you get rid of an entire department, then you can break the tenure.
So that's kind of what they're looking at doing.
That happened at my previous university. They actually got rid of an entire college.
Yeah. So that's actually the fear, is through this realignment that we're losing probably an entire college. That's what the rumor has been going on, is that we're losing some huge chunk of faculty all at once, and realigning our strategic goals at our university. So then that might, I mean, just as a counterpoint, faculty is not necessarily as guaranteed as non-faculty positions at a university. So,
yeah.
But,
well, and I think some of that is not a bad thing, because certainly some of the departments that they cut at my previous university were departments that were very small, that didn't have a lot of graduate students, that had maybe 1 or 2 undergraduate majors. And so it's good to focus on what you do really well and not try and do everything. But at the same time, getting to that place is really painful. And for here, the structure here is extremely top-heavy. And so I think there's plenty of academics, of administrators that we could shed, but I just don't think that's going to happen. It seems to always be the little guys or gals that get crapped on.
From your perspective, do you see tenure itself being a problem here?
I think that there are several universities in the United States that are trying to reinvent themselves without tenure. I'm sorry. I'm watching people walk back and forth in Canada. It's quite entertaining.
Sorry.
It's okay. No. And so I honestly do not know. I think that the AAUP is fighting that.
Sorry, what was that acronym?
AAUP is American Association of University Professors. So
they must have really fun meetings. I'm sorry. Getting academics to do anything as a group has been likened to herding cats. So
yeah,
now just imagine them unionized.
Yeah, that's professional cat herding. It's kind of scary actually, but no, I think it's not going to happen anytime soon, because nothing happens fast in the academy, ever. Nothing happens fast. It has to have a committee, it has to be studied to death, there have to be groups, and then it's the whole thing about a committee is a cul-de-sac down which a good idea is quietly lured and strangled. That it's not going to happen fast.
This will be a topic for a future podcast, but I'd like to talk to you at some point at what you think about MOOCs and how they're changing the academic landscape. Massively, how is it? Massively online open courses? Is that it?
Massively fucked up open courses.
Well, there's the teaser for the next episode.
Yeah. MOOC or MFLC?
Yes. There you go. Well, we're all set.
Tom, you've been quiet over there for a while. What do you got to say?
Nothing about this.
Beer coma.
Just a while back, I started thinking to myself about Bug talking about top-heavy things, and then moving academic things around. And it was just like,
And then it went to huge tracts of land, and then it was all downhill from there, so to speak.
Try to have a serious conversation with your friends. Every time.
That was awesome.
If it isn't pubic lice, it's academic dicks. What the hell is with the genitalia fascination around here?
I'm an entomologist. It's what we do.
There's a T-shirt for that.
There is, actually.
Dare I ask?
You don't know?
Oh, you're...
That's Bug's shirt.
Yeah, it's a genitalia. It's an entomological obsession. So sort of like Calvin Klein, only with genitalia.
Look, I know we're a little loaded down with bug people, but you know I'm not an entomologist, right? Like,
Yeah.
Not yet.
not yet.
Give it time. Give it time.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
Well, I mean, I guess I
would
wouldn't be surprised. I've been all over the place anyway, so.
Ultimately, it's a lot of times I find that things really do boil down, though, to the sort of conflicts that you can use the sexual analogy for. Because, I mean, it's why we have stabby cock daggers, right? Because sex is fun and interesting and disturbing, and it's inherently interesting to people.
Yeah.
So, because
this is actually what I found amusing from the emails that I got from this person was that they at no point took any issue with the tone of the piece. And when I went back to read it again, looking for any mistakes that I'd made or not made things clear, I was like, this is fucking juvenile.
Okay, so why did you take it down? Like, why did you not feel? Because if it were me, I would have been like, you don't like it, you don't have to read it, and I would have left it there. I might have made, if there were factual inaccuracies, maybe I might have tweaked those a little bit.
Yeah, you can fix that.
You can fix those. You know, that's part of the lovely online peer review process, right? But in terms of like just because like really, you know, I love that. I'm really sad that you took that down.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I guess maybe it was just one of those things where I kind of offered to make a few things clear, and then the next email came through with like this raft of things that must be changed, and at that point I was just kind of sitting going, I don't have time for this, and I really don't care.
But you got a million hits on this thing, right?
Yeah, but then I thought probably not going to get any more. My work is done.
No.
Bring people in for years.
Yeah, posts like that'll draw people in, and like if you had X number of hundreds of hits already, and you had one guy get his knickers in a knot over it, come on, leave it there for the rest of us who appreciate the stabby cock dagger.
You know, we could pull a Barbara Streisand effect and just start spreading it all over the internet.
I was going to say we could all cross-post it on our blogs. I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
I'd totally do that.
I'm in.
Do you still have it, or is it gone? Like, do you have to rewrite it is the problem?
I think I still have it. I might go through and do a little quick revision of it, but we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go to the Wayback Machine and get it. That's the sad thing. Once you delete something, it's not really actually gone. Somebody has a copy of it somewhere.
Yeah.
So
So
cock daggers are archived for all time.
Yes.
So your alternatives are, you know, you can put it up and share it with us yourself, or we're just going to go find it and repost it anyways.
There is that.
Because you've started something, Tom, and it's bigger than you.
You've met me, Stephen. It's not very hard.
Actually, you know, that was kind of surprising when I met you. I don't know why, but from the podcast, I kind of expected you to be really tall and Raphael to be really small. And yet when I met him, he's this gigantic guy. And, you know, it was really surprising.
And Tom's just
I was going to say Tom
you
is
didn't
what?
really finish that.
I think Stephen was just being polite there.
I think the word he's looking for is wiry.
Oh yeah. Tom's an annoyingly handsome guy. I mean, let's face it. But you know, it's.
I'd hit that.
Wow.
And after episode 11, everyone can fucking picture that.
Seriously, that was totally worth it just to see your reaction. That was awesome.
So you guys can't see this off camera, but my lab mate just walked over and found my I love Stabby Cockdagger sign and is looking at it with a really perplexed expression on her face. It's a thing. Kate, it's a thing. There it is. It's a science thing.
Oh my god, look at how
I gotta find a quieter room for this next time, because wow. All kinds of awkward happening here.
Sorry.
All right. Well, on
again.
Okay.
special guest Morgan's cat.
Yeah. Thanks, Callie. Jesus Christ.
On that professional note, let's wrap this up. So thank you all for joining us for episode 12 of the Breaking Bio podcast, and we'll see you next time if any of us are allowed back on the internet.
Possibly not.
Goodbye.
Possibly
Wave
not.
goodbye.